We were six kids who almost got split up forever. We made sure that never happened. I found this thread through my brother, who found it through someone at his unit. He sent me the link and said, "Read it when you have time." I read the whole thing in one sitting. My twin sister Grace and I have been talking about writing ours down for a while. This is my attempt. Her version would be funnier. Mine is more accurate. Hi, my name is Gabriel. I am 26 years old. I live in Lansing, Michigan, in the same house I grew up in, which I will explain. I work in cybersecurity. My twin sister Grace works as a diagnostic medical sonographer at a hospital 40 minutes away. Together, we earn more money than our parents ever did, and we are just getting started. But this story is not really about us. This story is about our oldest sister, Rachel, who was 22 years old when our parents died and who looked at 5 kids ranging from 12 to 2 years old and decided she was not going to let the state split us up. Everything Grace and I have been able to do started with Rachel making that decision. Full stop. Our parents, Ted and Cheryl, were good people. They worked, they were present, they loved us in the specific loud way that large families love each other, crowded and chaotic and warm. There were 6 of us. Rachel was the oldest at 22, then our brother Mark at 17, then Grace and me at 14, then our brother Parker, who was 8, then our youngest brother Theo, who was 2. They were killed in a car accident on an icy road in January. Parker was in the car. He survived without a scratch. He was 8 years old and the only one who walked away. When our parents died, Rachel was in her second year at Michigan State studying pre-law. She had a scholarship, she had a plan, she had a future that was taking shape in exactly the way she had worked toward it. She came home for the funeral and she did not go back. Not because anyone asked her to, because she looked at Mark trying to hold it together at 17, and Grace and me at 14 not knowing what was happening, and Parker at 8 being very quiet in a way that scared everyone, and Theo at 2, who did not fully understand why his parents were not coming home, and she made a calculation. She decided that the cost of staying was something she could survive, and the cost of leaving was something she could not. We were in foster care for 4 months while the state sorted out the guardianship paperwork. 4 months in multiple placements because no single home would take all 6 of us. Grace and I were together. Mark was somewhere else. Parker and Theo were together. Rachel was fighting every single day to get us back under one roof. She got us back. She moved into our parents' house, took over the mortgage with help from a small life insurance policy our parents had, and became our legal guardian at 22 years old. The university credits she had already earned meant she could fast-track a paralegal certificate rather than starting from scratch. She used what savings she had, combined with financial aid she still qualified for, in every child care subsidy and scholarship program she could find, to cover daycare for Theo, summer programs that kept the younger kids fed and supervised while she worked, tutors when the kids needed them, and lessons when she could manage it. She became a licensed paralegal faster than most people thought was possible, given everything else she was carrying. She also started picking up catering shifts on weekends whenever she could get them. Events, corporate dinners, private parties. Cash in hand, flexible hours, and you ate well on the job, which was not nothing when you were feeding 5 kids on a tight budget. It was not glamorous, it was just one more thing she figured out. I saw her cry exactly once in those first 2 years. She did not see I saw her. She was sitting at the kitchen table at midnight with the bills spread out in front of her, and she put her head down on her arms for about 2 minutes. Then she picked her head up, stacked the papers, and went to bed. I did not forget that. Mark was the first one to find a direction. He was 17 when our parents died, and he had always been the one who wanted structure, wanted rules, wanted to know exactly what was expected and then exceed it. He found out about ROTC through his high school counselor and threw himself into it completely. He also picked up Rachel's catering contacts and started working weekend events himself through high school, saving money and learning how the business ran. He kept a notebook of catering vendors, event coordinators, and pricing that he updated the way other teenagers kept playlists.
By the time he graduated, he had a full ROTC scholarship to Central Michigan University. In college, he kept catering on the side and started quietly designing a food truck concept, running the numbers, researching permits, mapping event circuits in Michigan. He came home on weekends when he could and sent money toward household expenses every month, sometimes more than planned, and that extra got squirreled into a savings account for emergencies. The furnace died the winter I was 17. I will not get into the details except to say that 6 people, children really, discovered simultaneously what a new furnace costs, and there was a period of about 20 minutes that involved tears and also genuine helpless laughter, because what else do you do? I still do not fully know how we pulled it off, but we did, and after that we were never unprepared again. Mark is now a commissioned officer in the Army. His plan was never to be a career soldier in the traditional sense. The military was always a calculated step, a way to get leadership training, advanced education, a security clearance, and a network that most people spend a decade trying to build on their own. He is working toward a civilian transition into logistics and operations management, and the food truck is not a hobby on the side of that. It is a fully developed business plan he has been refining for 6 years. I have seen the spreadsheets. They are extremely thorough. This surprises no one who knows Mark. Grace and I were 14 when everything changed, and we processed it differently. Grace got quiet and focused. I got loud and restless. What we both did, independently and without talking about it much at first, was start paying attention to money. Not because we were mature, because we were scared. Because we had watched Rachel sit at that kitchen table at midnight, and we understood, in the way that teenagers understand things they cannot fully articulate, that the difference between our family staying together and falling apart was measured in dollars. We inherited the catering work from Mark when he left for college. We split the shifts between us depending on who had time. It was not a lot of money, but it was consistent, and it was ours, and it taught us how to show up somewhere, do a job professionally, and get paid, skills that turned out to matter more than we expected. Grace found out about sonography through a career day at school when she was 16. A woman came and talked about diagnostic medical imaging, and Grace came home and told me it was a 2-year degree that paid more than most 4-year degrees, and that Michigan had good programs. Grace said she was going to do it. I believed her immediately because Grace has never said she was going to do something and not done it. I found cybersecurity through a free online course I took junior year out of boredom during a study hall. I'd always been good with computers, in the way that kids who spend a lot of time at home with a computer get good at computers. The course was on basic network security. Something clicked. I started taking more. I found out that you could stack certifications without a 4-year degree and be genuinely employable. I found out that entry-level cybersecurity jobs in Michigan were starting at $50,000 to $60,000. I wrote that number down and looked at it for a long time. We both applied to Lansing Community College, Grace for the Diagnostic Medical Sonography program, me for Computer Information Technology with a cybersecurity track. We both got in. We applied for every grant and scholarship available. The Pell Grant, the Michigan Tuition Grant, small local scholarships that nobody applies for because the amount seems small until you add them up. Between grants and scholarships and a small amount of student loans, we covered almost everything. We also both got part-time jobs the week we started. Grace at a medical office, me at an IT help desk that paid $12 an hour and taught me more practical skills in 6 months than a year of coursework. We kept the catering shifts when we could fit them. We still lived at home. That was not a sacrifice. That was the plan. Rachel had been running the household for 4 years by the time Grace and I started college. Parker was 12, Theo was 6. Rachel was 26, fully credentialed as a paralegal, promoted at the law firm, and doing work that made it clear to anyone paying attention that she was not finished. She had quietly started looking at what it would take to go to law school. The answer involved money and time she did not yet have.
Grace and I talked about it in the car one night on the way home from a late shift. We ran the numbers out loud. If we both finished our programs and got jobs in our fields, we would be making combined somewhere between $120,000 and $140,000 a year. The mortgage on the house was $900 a month. The household expenses were manageable. Rachel's salary covered it now, but barely, and always had. If Grace and I were earning real salaries and remained living at home, everything changed. Rachel would not need to be the sole financial support. She would be free. We presented it to her on a Sunday afternoon, like a business proposal. Grace made a spreadsheet. I talked through the numbers. Rachel sat across from us at the kitchen table, where I had watched her cry at midnight 8 years earlier, and listened without interrupting. When we finished, she said, "You two have been planning this." Grace said we had been thinking about it for a while. Rachel looked at the spreadsheet for a long time. Then she said, "I cannot let you do this." I said, "You did not let us do anything. You held this family together for 8 years. We are not asking permission. We are telling you what is going to happen. Mark has already set up a monthly transfer into the household account that covers his share." She looked at me. Then she looked at Grace. Then she put her face in her hands for about 30 seconds. When she looked up, her eyes were wet, but she was almost smiling. She said, "Okay." Grace finished her sonography degree at 20. She passed her ARDMS registry exam on the first attempt and was hired at a hospital in the greater Lansing area at $68,000 a year. I finished my 2-year program, stacked my CompTIA Security Plus certification and my Certified Information Systems Security Professional Associate level credential, and was hired at a cybersecurity firm in Lansing at $54,000. Within 18 months, I had been promoted and was earning $67,000. With Mark's contribution, Grace's salary, and my salary, the household was not just covered, it was comfortable for the first time in 8 years. Rachel enrolled in law school the following fall. Part-time, evenings and weekends, her employer supporting it, the family supporting the rest. She is 2 years in. She is not going to stop. I want to say something about what all of this actually cost. Not financially, the other cost. We're a close family, closer than most. We talk constantly, we show up for each other, we know each other's schedules and worries and plans in a level of detail that most families do not. That closeness is real, and it is one of the best things in my life. A lot of people tell us they couldn't have done that with their siblings. I understand that. We were like any other family before everything happened. We just went through something that bonded us in ways we did not choose, and then chose to keep leaning into instead of away from. We dated a little less and went to parties a little less, but we also had each other. Cedar Point every summer. Free museum days always used. Epic board game nights at our house. When my friends were out after football games, I was happily watching Avatar and making brownies and coloring with Parker and Theo. I look forward to doing that with my own kids someday. It also came from trauma. Our parents died when we were children, and we held each other together, and that kind of holding leaves marks even when it works. Rachel gave up years she will not get back. Mark learned to be responsible at 17 in a way nobody should have to. Grace and I grew up watching money as a threat before we understood it as a tool. We have all done the work of figuring out what we are carrying and finding ways to put some of it down. Therapy helped. So did knowing that each of us helping made it easier for all of us to be who we needed to be. We had our moments, big emotions, hard seasons, but we also had a foundation that was full of love even before all of this happened, and that mattered. We even joke that someday, when we are old, we are all moving back in together until the end. By then, we should each have a fat deposit ready. Luxury lakeside retreat, here we come. Now, about Parker and Theo. Parker was in the car that night in January. He was 8 years old, and he walked away without a scratch. That is not something a child processes easily. He spent years feeling like he should have done something, saved them somehow, the way a superhero would have. With therapy and time and a family that never once made him feel like a burden for surviving, he found his way through it. He is 19 now and the smartest person I know. The superhero thing never fully went away. It just grew into something larger. He no longer wants to save people the way a child imagines saving people. He wants to help people at a scale that most people do not think is achievable. We found out about United World Colleges at a catering job, a wedding where the bride and several guests were alumni. Grace and I spent most of the reception quietly listening to their conversations between passes with the appetizer trays and went home and looked it up that night. UWC is a global network of boarding schools that brings together students from over 150 countries on full scholarships to study the International Baccalaureate together. The application is competitive, the experience is genuinely transformative, the financial aid covers everything for students who qualify. Parker applied and got in. He is currently at UWC Maastricht in the Netherlands on a full scholarship, learning alongside students from countries he could not have found on a map 2 years ago, building the kind of global perspective and network that will serve whatever he decides to do with his life. He also sketches a graphic novel in his spare time that I am not supposed to know about. I know about it. It is very good. He texts us pictures of his lunch sometimes. The food looks incredible. We are mildly jealous. Does Parker owe this family anything? The answer is no. Parker is going to go out into the world and do something that matters. That is more than enough. Consider the debt paid in advance. We raised him. He owes us to go live his life fully. That is the whole point. Theo is 12 now. He does not remember our parents. He was 2 when they died. What he knows is this house and this family, and Rachel making dinner, and Mark coming home on leave, and Grace and me doing whatever Grace and me do, and Parker always ready to jump into a game or a watch party when he is not studying. Theo is the most cheerful person any of us have ever met. He wakes up happy, he comes home happy. Every single time one of us walked through the door, every pickup from daycare, every return from a late shift, Theo was there with a greeting that made you feel like you had been missed in a specific and personal way. He did not know what he was doing, he was just being Theo. But in a house full of people who were exhausted and worried and holding things together with whatever they had left, Theo's cheerfulness was not a small thing. It was the thing that reminded us why we were doing it. He was the glue without knowing he was the glue. Does Theo owe this family anything? He was 2 years old. He kept our hearts soft when they needed to stay soft. Every hug at the door was its own kind of holding a family together. He paid his share without ever being asked. He just did not know it yet. He has expressed interest in marine biology. He is obsessed with Jacques Cousteau and aquariums. We are already researching scholarships. I am 26 years old. I work in cybersecurity. I live in the house I grew up in with my twin sister and my youngest brother and my oldest sister who is in law school on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. She called us all into the kitchen the day she got her most recent promotion, all of us who were home. She stood at the head of the table where she used to sit alone at midnight with the bills spread out, and she said, "I just want you to know that this family is the best thing that ever happened to me." Grace started crying immediately. I held it together for about 4 seconds. Mark cried on the phone when we called him. He denies this. I miss you, Mom and Dad. I feel your love every day. Thank you for being our foundation. We built on it the best way we knew how. The point of this story is not that we are exceptional. Outside of perhaps working really well together when it mattered most, we are just a family that paid attention to what was available and used it. The Pell Grant is real. The Michigan Tuition Grant is real. Employer tuition reimbursement programs exist at a lot of companies, and most employees never use them. The ARDMS certification pathway for sonography is real and fast and pays well. Cybersecurity certifications stack, and employers care more about what you can do than where you went to school. United World Colleges is real and fully funded, and your kid might qualify. And catering, or any flexible cash work you can pass between family members as life changes, is an underrated way to keep a household moving when everything else is uncertain. The tools were there. We found them. We used them and kept the family together. That was the whole plan. It worked.